The Nexeri were dying. High Commander Sylvena watched through crystalline viewing panels as another colony ship erupted into fragments of twisted metal and frozen bodies. Her secondary hearts constricted at the sight of escape pods being methodically hunted down by the Void Stalker's interceptors. The savage precision of it all made her inner membranes ripple with disgust. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before her. "Seventh Fleet is completely lost, High Commander," her tactical officer reported, voice trembling. "The Void Stalker's phase cannons bypassed our shields as if they weren't even there. We've lost contact with the Emerald Arm colonies." The Nexeri had thought themselves prepared for anything the galaxy might throw at them. For 10,000 years, they had been the beacon of civilization in their sector, spreading art, culture, and technological advancement to dozens of emerging species. Their crystalline ships were marvels of engineering, their energy lattice shields supposedly impenetrable. All that meant nothing now. The Void Stalkers had appeared 3 standard cycles ago, emerging from the dark space between galaxies. At first, the Nexeri had attempted peaceful contact, as was their way. The response was immediate and brutal. Entire worlds reduced to atomic ash, billions of lives snuffed out in mere days. "High Commander," her science officer called out, "long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures from Sector 2814. It appears to be primitive nuclear fusion technology." Sylvena's attention shifted to the data streams. Sector 2814, a backwater region the Nexeri had been monitoring for potential future contact. Its dominant species had barely managed to reach their own satellite, let alone achieve meaningful spaceflight. "Humans," she whispered, recalling the briefings. A young, aggressive species that had somehow survived multiple attempts at self-annihilation. The Nexeri Council had deemed them too volatile for contact, citing their alarming propensity for violence and their bizarre ability to thrive in conflict. A desperate plan began forming in her mind. "Show me their military capabilities," she ordered. The tactical display shifted, showing primitive projectile weapons, crude nuclear devices, and laughably simple space stations. But something else caught her attention: their combat doctrine archives. Unlike the Nexeri, who had evolved beyond personal combat millions of years ago, humans seemed to revel in it. Their military history was an endless catalog of adaptation, innovation, and sheer bloody-mindedness. "High Commander," her first officer protested, reading her intentions, "you cannot be considering. They're barely more than savages. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They still kill each other over resources and ideology." "Exactly," Sylvena replied, her inner membranes now perfectly still. "We've spent millennia perfecting peace. They've spent millennia perfecting war." A new alert blared. More Void Stalker ships entering the system. Their black, angular forms seemed to absorb light itself, a stark contrast to the crystalline elegance of Nexeri vessels. "Plot a course to Earth," she commanded, "and prepare our first contact protocols." "High Commander, the Council has explicitly forbidden." "The Council is dead," Sylvena cut him off, "along with everyone else in the capital system. We need warriors, not diplomats. And if our intelligence is correct, we're about to meet the most accomplished warriors this sector has ever produced." As her ship entered FTL, Sylvena reflected on the irony of their situation. The Nexeri had always looked down on humanity's violent nature, seeing it as proof of their primitive status. Now that very nature might be the only thing that could save galactic civilization. The humans had a saying, she remembered from the cultural archives: "Beware the fury of a patient man." The Void Stalkers were about to learn why even the most advanced species gave Earth a wide berth. Sometimes salvation comes not from the enlightened, but from those who have mastered the art of violence while retaining their humanity. The fate of countless civilizations now rested on a species that still fought with projectile weapons and hadn't even unified their own planet. Sylvena could only hope she wasn't making the biggest mistake in Nexari history. General Sarah Chen stood at the window of the UN Security Council chamber, her expression unreadable as she watched the crystalline ship hovering over New York. After 30 years in the Marine Corps, she thought she'd seen everything. She was wrong. "Let me get this straight," she said, turning to face the alien delegation. "You're an advanced civilization that's being systematically wiped out by these void stalkers, and you came to us for help." High Commander Sylvena's translucent form shifted uncomfortably under the human's direct gaze. "We understand your skepticism, General Chen. But our situation is desperate. The void stalkers have destroyed 12 of our core worlds in less than a cycle, what you would call 3 months. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed footage of the attacks. Even hardened military officials flinched at the sight of entire planets being methodically taken apart, their populations harvested for purposes unknown. "And what exactly do you think we can do that your advanced civilization couldn't?" Chen's voice carried a sharp edge. "You've made it clear that our technology is primitive by your standards. Hell, we're still trying to establish a permanent base on Mars." Sylvena moved forward, her crystalline form catching the morning light. "What you lack in technology, you possess in other areas. Your species has something we lost long ago. The warrior's spirit, the ability to not just survive conflict, but to thrive in it." The room fell silent as classified military footage began playing. Battles from throughout human history, from ancient conflicts to modern warfare. The Nexari had been watching, studying, learning. "In all our observations," Sylvena continued, "we've never seen a species so adaptable in combat. You turn everything into a weapon. You fight with a creativity that borders on madness. When faced with superior force, you don't surrender, you innovate." Admiral James Rodriguez leaned forward. "You're talking about guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat." "We're talking about survival," Sylvena replied. "The Void Stalker's technology surpasses even ours, but they fight like machines, predictable, methodical. They've never encountered an enemy that thinks like humans do." Chen walked to the holographic display, studying the Void Stalker ships. "These energy weapons of theirs, the ones that bypass your shields, how do they work?" "They operate on principles we barely understand," Sylvena admitted. "They phase through our defensive fields as if they weren't there." A slight smile crossed Chen's face. "But they still have to obey the laws of physics, right? Energy is energy. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's finding ways to break things." The Security Council chamber erupted in discussion. The Chinese representative was already talking about manufacturing capacity. The Russian delegate was discussing submarine warfare doctrine adapted for space. The Indian commander was suggesting modifications to their anti-satellite weapons. "You understand," Chen said, turning back to Sylvena. "If we help you, everything changes. Humanity won't go back to being a primitive species you can study from afar. We'll want a seat at the table." "If you help us," Sylvena replied, "there will still be a table to sit at." Within hours, the decision was made. Earth's military forces were mobilized with unprecedented unity. Weapons factories ran around the clock. Nexari technology was integrated with human combat doctrine, creating hybrid weapons that matched human ingenuity with alien advancement. But as the first human volunteers began training with Nexari equipment, a disturbing thought occurred to General Chen. The Nexari were desperate enough to arm a species they considered primitive. How bad was the situation really? The answer came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a Void Stalker scout ship entering the solar system. The time for preparation was over. Humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why even the most advanced civilizations should fear the species that turned killing into an art form. Humanity was going to war. Not for resources, not for ideology, but for the survival of all sentient life. And perhaps, just perhaps, That's what made them the most dangerous species of all. The Void Stalker command ship detected the human fleet too late. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the U.S. Nightshade as her stealth fleet emerged from the dark side of Saturn's rings. The ships were ugly by both human and Nexari standards. Hybrid vessels that combined Nexari crystal technology with human ingenuity and a complete disregard for aesthetic beauty. All ships, weapons-free, she commanded. Execute Operation Dark Star. The first wave of attacks wasn't energy weapons or advanced alien technology. It was rocks. Thousands of chunks of ice and mineral from Saturn's rings, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds by modified mass drivers. The Void Stalker's sophisticated shields were calibrated for energy weapons, not kinetic impacts moving at significant fractions of light speed. The results were devastating. Multiple hits confirmed, her tactical officer reported. Their shields are holding, but power fluctuations detected. They're adjusting their defensive grid. Maya allowed herself a grim smile. Phase 2. Launched the drones. Swarms of automated drones, built in secret using reversed engineered Nexari tech, emerged from their hiding places in the ring system. But these weren't the elegant combat drones the Nexari used. These were dirty, brutal machines designed by humans who'd grown up playing video games and watching sci-fi movies. The drones attacked in patterns that made no tactical sense, sacrificing themselves in ways no logical military AI would consider. They crashed into Void Stalker shields, detonating primitive nuclear devices that overwhelmed sensor systems. Others latched onto hull plating, using shaped charges to breach the outer armor. Technology that dated back to World War II, now being used in space warfare. Their targeting systems are scrambled. The sensor officer called out. They can't get a lock on our actual ships. Maya keyed her comm. All ships, execute attack pattern Sierra 9. Time to show them why humans are the galaxy's worst nightmare. The fleet moved in perfect chaos, a combat doctrine that had taken months to develop. Every ship captain had been chosen for their ability to think creatively under pressure. Their movements followed no logical pattern, making it impossible for the Void Stalker's predictive algorithms to anticipate their actions. The Nexari observers aboard the human ships watched in a mixture of horror and amazement. The humans fought like demons possessed, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They turned debris into weapons, used electromagnetic pulses in ways that should have been suicidal, and coordinated their attacks with a savagery that bordered on art. Multiple Void Stalker vessels attempting to retreat, Tactical reported. They're regrouping for a counterattack. Not today, Maya growled. Spring the trap. Hidden throughout Saturn's rings, automated factories, another human innovation, had been mass-producing simple but lethal weapons for months. At Maya's command, they activated, launching tens of thousands of self-guided missiles. Each one carried a payload that combined Nexari crystal technology with human nuclear weapons. The Void Stalkers found themselves caught in a three-dimensional killing field. Their superior technology meant nothing against an enemy that turned an entire planetary ring system into a weapon. Hours later, Maya stood in her ready room, composing her report to General Chen. The battle had been won, but at a cost. 3 human ships lost, hundreds of lives sacrificed. But they had proven something crucial. The Void Stalkers could be beaten. Her comm unit chimed. High Commander Sylvena's image appeared, her crystalline form somehow conveying both awe and concern. Captain Rodriguez, she began. We had no idea. The way your people fight. We're just getting started, Maya replied. The Void Stalkers made a crucial mistake. They attacked a peaceful species and forced them to turn to humanity for help. Now they have to face an enemy that turned warfare into an art form over thousands of years of conflict. And what happens after? Sylvena asked. When the war is over. Maya's expression hardened. Then the galaxy learns why peaceful species should be grateful that humans decided to be friends rather than conquerors. The battle at Saturn was just the beginning. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as diplomats or traders, but as warriors. And they were about to remind the cosmos why evolution had favored the clever apes who never stopped finding new ways to fight. The bridge of the Void Stalker command vessel erupted in chaos as their quantum probability engines failed. For the first time in their ancient history, they faced an enemy whose actions couldn't be predicted. Analysis incomplete, the Hive Mind Tactical Network reported. Human combat patterns show no discernible logic, unable to formulate counter-strategy. Supreme Executor Nethrix, a being of living shadow and cold calculation, watched as another battle group fell to the primitive humans' inexplicable tactics. Their latest assault had involved using their own damaged chips as weapons, deliberately detonating their reactor cores to create artificial supernovas that rippled through space-time. "They're insane," Nethrix transmitted to the collective. "They sacrifice their own units without hesitation. They ignore tactical doctrine. They treat the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolutes." The massive holographic display showed the current battle unfolding across 3 star systems. Human forces, now equipped with hybrid technology that combined their savage ingenuity with Nexari advancement, were engaging in combat maneuvers that defied conventional military logic. They had turned asteroid fields into minefields, used solar flares as weapons, and somehow managed to weaponize the quantum uncertainty principle itself. Every time the Void Stalkers developed a counter-strategy, the humans would abandon it entirely and try something even more desperate and unpredictable. "New contact detected," the sensor network announced. "Multiple human vessels emerging from FTL. Configuration unknown." Nethrix focused on the new arrivals. The ships were ugly, brutish things. Clearly human design aesthetics merged with stolen technology. But something was different about these vessels. They'd radiated energy signatures that made no sense. General Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the HMS Prometheus, humanity's first true war machine built with full access to Nexari technology. The ship herself was an abomination by both human and alien standards, a hybrid monster that embodied humanity's approach to warfare. "All ships, execute Operation Phoenix," she commanded. "Show them why you don't corner a species that turned survival into an art form." The human fleet moved as one, implementing a strategy that had taken months to perfect. It violated every known law of tactical engagement, every principle of space warfare. The Nexari observers aboard nearly went into shock when they realized what the humans planned. They were going to weaponize space-time itself. The hybrid drives of the human ships began to resonate in perfect harmony, creating a cascading effect that rippled through the fabric of reality. It was a technique born from humanity's reckless experiments with Nexari technology, something no sane species would ever attempt. By all known laws of physics, this should destroy them too, High Commander Sylvena whispered from her observer's position. "Known laws," Chen replied with a grim smile. "Humans have a habit of rewriting those when they get in our way." The space between the fleets began to twist and distort. The Void Stalker's quantum probability engines went into overdrive, trying to calculate possible outcomes, but there was nothing in their vast database that could predict what happened when humans decided to break reality itself. The resulting temporal shockwave ripped through the Void Stalker fleet like a tsunami through paper. Ships were torn apart not by weapons, but by the very fabric of space-time being turned into a weapon. Those that survived the initial wave found themselves trapped in localized time distortions, their advanced technology rendered useless by phenomena that shouldn't have been possible. Hours later, as the quantum distortions finally settled, Chen surveyed the aftermath. The human fleet had suffered heavy losses, the price of wielding forces they barely understood. But they had achieved something unprecedented. They had broken the Void Stalker's will to fight. "Send word to Earth," Chen ordered. "The backbone of their fleet is broken. But make it clear, this victory came at a cost. We've proven we can beat them, but we've also shown the galaxy something they may not be ready to accept." "What's that?" Sylvena asked. That humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our tactics, Chen replied. It's our willingness to do the impossible, even if it means risking everything. We don't just break the rules of warfare. We break the rules of reality itself. As reports of the victory spread across human and Nexari space, a new understanding began to dawn on the galactic community. They had feared the Void Stalkers for their advanced technology, but perhaps they should have been more afraid of the species that looked at the laws of physics as challenges rather than limitations. The war wasn't over, but its turning point had arrived. And it came not from superior technology or overwhelming force, but from humanity's unique talent for turning the impossible into merely improbable, and then into reality. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance was nothing like the sterile, austere halls of the old Nexari Confederation. Humans had insisted on redesigning it, adding what they called character, battle scars left unrepaired, trophies from the war, and architectural elements that combined the aesthetics of a dozen species. 5 years after the Breaking Point battle, representatives from across known space gathered to mark a new era. At the center of the chamber stood General Sarah Chen, now Earth's primary representative to the Alliance, facing an audience that included former enemies and reluctant allies alike. The war changed us all, she began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. Not just humanity, but every spacefaring species. The Void Stalkers taught us that technological superiority means nothing without the will to adapt, to evolve, to break boundaries. High Commander Selvena, her crystalline form now bearing the distinctive modifications that marked the Nexari's own evolution, nodded in agreement. The formerly peaceful species had learned harsh lessons about the necessity of maintaining a warrior's edge, even in times of peace. But perhaps the greatest change, Chen continued, was in how we view each other. The Nexari thought us primitive because we still waged war. The Void Stalkers thought us inferior because we lacked their technological advancement. Both discovered that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our savagery. It's our refusal to accept limitations. The chamber's holographic displays showed scenes from the war's aftermath. Human engineers working alongside Nexari scientists to stabilize the space-time rifts they'd created, joint military exercises where different species learned from each other's strengths, and the early warning network that now protected Alliance space. The Void Stalkers retreated to dark space, Chen acknowledged, but they're not gone. They're watching, learning, adapting, just as we are. The difference is, they now understand what we proved during the war, that humanity doesn't just fight to win. We fight to change the rules of the game itself. A low murmur swept through the chamber as representatives discussed the implications. The humans had indeed changed everything. Their victory hadn't just saved civilization, it had transformed it. The Alliance's military doctrine now incorporated human unpredictability alongside Nexari precision and other species' unique capabilities. But our greatest victory, Chen declared, wasn't on the battlefield. It was in proving that being civilized doesn't mean forgetting how to fight. That being peaceful doesn't mean being helpless. And most importantly, that true strength comes not from technological advancement, but from the willingness to risk everything for what you believe in. The chamber erupted in applause, a human custom that other species had gradually adopted. Even the Void Stalker observers, permitted under the Armistice Agreement, seemed to shift uncomfortably at the display of unity. Later, in her private chambers, Chen met with Selvena. The Nexari commander had become a close friend during the war, their initial cultural clash evolving into deep mutual respect. "Did you ever imagine," Selvena asked, "when we first came to Earth, that it would end like this?" Chen smiled, looking out at the Earth-Mars transit lanes bustling with interstellar traffic. "End. This isn't an ending, Selvena. Humanity just proved we can rewrite the rules of reality when pushed far enough. The galaxy's never going to be the same, and that's exactly how we like it." "You humans," Selvena observed, her tone mixing amusement with lingering awe, You turned saving civilization into another challenge to overcome, another boundary to break. That's what humans do, Chen replied. We don't just survive. We change the game. And now the galaxy knows why the most dangerous species isn't the one with the most advanced technology or the largest fleet. It's the one that looks at the impossible and says, "Challenge accepted." Sylvena finished. As night fell over the Alliance capital, ships from 100 worlds moved through the skylanes. Among them, human vessels stood out, not for their technology or their weapons, but for what they represented. They were reminders that in humanity's darkest hour, they hadn't just fought back. They had changed the very nature of what was possible. The galaxy had gained not just warriors, but innovators who refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. And perhaps that was humanity's greatest contribution, teaching the cosmos that true civilization meant maintaining the wisdom to stay peaceful and the strength to fight when peace wasn't enough. The stars beckoned, and humanity's journey was just beginning.